All right, so 4.2, page 182, was also a lot with slope-intercept form yesterday and previously, right? That's the main form that we've dealt with, main equation that we dealt with is slope-intercept form. We're getting a new one today, okay? A new one today. This is called point-slope form.
What?
Okay, so we're getting a new type of equation for a linear function. So we're going to point-slope form. So I'm going to write it down. There's a lot to it. Make sure you copy it down correctly. All right, and then we'll make sure we understand what it's showing us. So don't freak out on me if it looks a little harder or whatever. Just go with it.
That's a lot of Y's.
There's two Y's. But yes. Go ahead and copy that down. All right, so this is point-slope form. Just like slope-intercept form, we had a slope and we had an intercept that we could get from it. We've got a point and we've got slope that we can get from it. We already know what slope is in this equation. What letter is slope? M. So M is slope. And then our point is going to be x1 comma y1. x1 comma y1 is going to be a point. And that represents any point that's on the line. So x1, y1 is a point on the line, and m is the slope of that line. Okay. So an example of this, also x and y stay x and y. Just like y equals mx plus b, the y and the x stay y and x. Okay, it's going to stay y there and x there. Those variables stay there. We fill in numbers for y1, m, and x1. So an example of this would be y minus 4 is equal to 2/3 x minus 2. This is an example in point-slope form. All right, person next, what do you think the slope and the point are from that equation? Okay. We all know the slope is 2/3. So I guess the real question is, what's the point going to be here? Okay, what's the point? Nope. Ethan?
-2 comma -4.
Nope. Ethan?
4, 2.
Nope. Riley? It is 2 comma 4. It's 2 comma 4. Let's take a look at why that's 2 comma 4. Okay, very important we understand why. Look at your equation. Okay, look at your equation. It's x minus x1. So whatever is being subtracted, that's the x1. Over here, the 2 is being subtracted. So the 2 is your x1. Because there's that minus there, because there's this minus in our equation, it's always going to be the opposite of what you see. It's the opposite of what you see. You see a -2, it's a +2. You see a -4, it's a +4. Because that's the way our equation is set up. It's y minus your y1 value. Okay? So So very important that we're taking the opposite of what you see there. So let's do another one. Let's see if we've learned our lesson. Let's try this again. What person next to you? What's that point going to be? What's the
We
slope?
need to write it out first. Okay. So it's gonna be 1/2, 2 and it's gonna be -5. There's the y. -5 is the y. 2 and -5. The -5.
All right, here you go. Raise your hand. Tell me what is our point for this one? What's our point for this one? Okay? 2, -5. 2, -5. That's the opposite of what you see. So you got a -2, that's +2. That's a +2. You got +5, that's really y minus a -5 there. So that's a -5 that we're doing. Okay? That is the number one biggest mistake that people are going to make on this, is to get the wrong point. Okay, questions on point slope form right now? Okay, so let's do this. Let me go the other way. I'm going to give you a point. I'm going to give you the slope. You need to create the equation. So let's have a slope of -3/4, and we're going to have a point of -1/4. All right, put that into point slope form. So talk to somebody about it. Okay, here we go. Regina, tell me what is our equation going to look like? What equation you read? Maddie?
Y minus 4 equals -3/4, and then x plus 1 is 1.
Perfect. There you go. Y minus 4 is equal to -3/4, parentheses x plus 1. Okay. Questions on that? Let's talk for a second. What if I had a 0 there? Would I have y minus 0? Just y, right? I don't need a -0. So if you see something like this where you're like, hey, we don't have a minus something or a plus something, that's because it's a 0. Right? You could have that as well. You know, if the x is 0, you might not see something there. So we're just going to, if it's not there, right, we assume it's a 0. All right. Questions on our basics of point slope form? Of course that's not it, right? Of course that's not it. We have more. So yesterday, we took 2 points and we created an equation. But every time they gave you a y-intercept yesterday. We're going to do the same thing, but they're not going to give us that y-intercept anymore. Okay, they're going to give us 2 points. So let's say I have the points 1, 2, and 3, -2. They want an equation in slope intercept. So at the end, they want y equals mx plus b. That's what they want at the end. They want y equals mx plus b. I'm just telling you where we're headed. We can't just go straight into y equals mx plus b because we don't know that y-intercept, right? Neither of these is a y-intercept because we don't have one where x is 0. So instead, what we need to do is we need to find the slope, right? We can find slope. And then we'll have slope and we have points. And when you have slope and a point, we can use point slope form. Okay, if you don't have the intercept, but you just have a point, it's the point slope form that we're going to use. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to find the slope first. I want you to go ahead and find the slope between those two lines, just like you did, or those 2 points, just like you did yesterday. Find the slope.
It's a half. That makes sense. Wait, no. It's 2/1.
I want you to write it down so you get it. Instead of just trying to do it in your head.
Okay, now let's do it. 4 to 2. It could be -4, and then 2.
Make sure we simplify it.
-2 over 1.
Check person next to you, make sure they have the same slope.
-2 over 1. So -2 pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And then we have to create it.
Okay, here we go. There we go. 5, please. So we're going to do slope. I decided to do 2 minus a -2. You could have gone the other way. That's okay. But I did 2 minus a -2, which is like adding. And since I started with the 2, I got to start with the 1. 1 minus 3. So that's going to give me 4 over -2. So I got a slope of -2. All right, everybody's good there? Slope of -2. Great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take the slope and 1 point and put it into point slope form. Okay, here's what I want you to do. This half of the room, I want you to plug in this number with that slope. Okay? This half of the room, I want you to plug in this point with that slope. Okay? Come up with your point slope form, please. No, you're on that side. You're on that side. So you're creating point slope form with a point on your side and that same slope.
I don't think you can do all of them. Did you plug in 1 for each? Maybe that's right.
All right, somebody on this side. Raise your hand, give me what is your equation look like here? Levi?
Y minus 2 equals -2, and then in parentheses, x minus 1.
Good? We're good? Thank you. Somebody on this side? Here? Owen?
Y plus 2 equals -2.
Yeah, so both of these are right, okay? And here's what we need to look at. And this is the downside of point slope form. The downside of point slope form is both of these equations represent the same exact line. We have 2 different equations for the same line. And really, we could have an infinite number of different equations for the same line. As long as the point that you're plugging in is on that line, your equation could look very different. I mean, they're all going to have the same slope, right? Because constant rate of change everywhere on that line is the same slope. But you could have different points. Both of these are correct. Okay? So you could have a different answer than somebody when we go to do it tomorrow or Monday. Okay? You could have a different answer, that's okay. Any questions on how we got these? Okay? But remember, they didn't want their answer. They didn't want the answer in point slope form. They wanted slope intercept form. So now what we have to do is we have to get y by itself. It's a simple two-step process. Okay? Two-step process. The first thing you have to do is you have to distribute. You got to distribute the slope. And then we're either adding the two or subtracting the two, depending on which side you are. So take the one that you have, right? The one that's on your half of the board, and distribute the slope, and then add or subtract that number over to get y by itself. We're trying to get it into y equals mx plus b. Okay, so what do we notice? They're the same thing, right? They're the same thing. This is the beauty of slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form, there is only one equation for it. One equation for that line. Which is why most of the time they're going to ask you to put your answer in slope-intercept form. Because that way we know it's going to be the same. Okay? But to get there, we have to go through this process. So anytime they give you 2 points, and neither of them are the y-intercept, this is what you're doing. You're finding that slope. Take the slope and either point, doesn't matter. The slope and either point, put it into point slope form. Distribute, add to get over to y equals mx plus b. That's our process. Okay. Questions on that before I have you try notes? Okay. Okay, go ahead, walk through it with somebody. Okay, talk about what you're doing as you're doing it.
Okay, so we're just doing one of the sides. What side do you want to do?
Let's do this smaller.
No, we have to get a slope first. So it would be -3 on the top. And
There's no 3. What are you thinking?
-3 on the top and
It's not -3.
12 on the
It's
bottom.
-4.
-3 and 12.
Oh, wait, now I see.
So you divide it by 3 to get -1 and then 4. So it's -1.
I'm just going to do it.
Okay.
And mostly good.
Did I get it right?
Okay.
Remember at the end, we wanted y equals mx plus b.
Okay, well,
Equals mx plus b.
I put it into point salt.
All right, here we go. So we should have a slope of negative 1/4. If you don't have a slope of negative 1/4, then you did something wrong. Okay? And if you don't get the slope right, you have 0 shot at the rest of it. So we gotta get this right. Any questions on the slope? Again, make sure your y's are on top, right? The y values are on top, x on the bottom. So you negative 1/4. Okay, then we choose either one of the points. How many people chose this point to plug in? How many people chose this point? Great, half and half, doesn't matter. So I'll go with first one. So that would be y plus 1 is equal to negative 1/4 x plus 4. Because it's the opposite of what you see. You got a minus there, it's a plus here. I distribute that negative 1/4. That's negative 1/4 x. Negative 1/4 times a positive 4 is a negative 1. This is just like dividing by negative 4. Okay, timesing by negative 1/4 is dividing by negative 4. So I'm there, and then I'm going to subtract another 1. I get negative 1/4 x minus 2. That should be my answer. So either way, all right? I'll plug in the other one real quick just to make sure. I got y plus 4 is equal to negative 1/4 x minus 8. Again, I distribute that. That's negative 1/4 x. Now it's plus 2. I subtract 4. Y is equal to negative 1/4 x minus 2. All right. So you're going to see the same sorts of problems that you saw yesterday. You're going to see again today. Only we got to go through that point slope form first before we can get there.
I like that.
Any questions? All right, go ahead.